Joe Bob Briggs here, and we've got the classroom here in Baltimore, parked outside John Waters' house. We're hoping he's going to invite us in while we show his movie Hairspray. And no, we already have an invite. We'll be inside in just a few minutes to talk to him about the flick and look at his tchotchkes. And by the way, next week we'll be showing Mars Attacks here on Joe Bob Summer School, but we'll have UFO expert Stan Friedman on the show, so you'll want to watch it again. Okay, we have that locked jimmied on John Waters' front door. Okay, good. Professor Joe Bob Briggs here with week 6 of Joe Bob Summer School's Cinema Studies 101. We're here in Baltimore, Maryland on our second field trip of the semester at the home of the great writer, producer, director, John Waters. And he'll be joining us shortly while we watch his big crossover hit movie, Hairspray. And I hope I can talk him into letting us stay and watch American Graffiti with him, especially since I believe the portable classroom is getting towed for being illegally parked as we speak. Tonight, we are studying Baltimore as the film capital of the world. Now, Baltimore could really be considered the capital of the world when you look at who's come out of this town. One of my favorite writers, H.L. Mencken, novelists like Dashiell Hammett and Upton Sinclair, musicians, Billie Holiday, Mama Cass, Rick Ocasek, Philip Glass, Frank Zappa, and of course, Tony DeFranco, A Heartbeat is a Love Beat. Cleopatra Jones is from here, Tamara Dobson, the actress, plus Michael Tucker from L.A. Law, Josh Charles, who debuted in Hairspray, Parker Posey, and the great David Hasselhoff. Athletes like Babe Ruth, and people we don't know what category to put them in, like Montel Williams, and Johnny Eck, the famous half-boy measuring in at 1'6". But this is cinema studies, so let's stick to film. The two paragons of Baltimore cinema are John Waters, who has filmed every single one of his films here, including Hairspray, Cry Baby, Pecker, and the film that established his cult reputation, Pink Flamingos. And the second world-renowned Baltimore director is Barry Levinson, who is right now following up his Baltimore trilogy of Diner, Tin Men, and Avalon with Liberty Heights. However, let's not forget the filmmakers whose movies are so universal that we forget they were shot right here in Baltimore. Guys like Don Dohler, whose work includes the 1977 classic The Alien Factor, about a spaceship containing specimens for an intergalactic zoo that start mutilating people when they crash on Earth, with the most authentic performances since The Legend of Boggy Creek, in my opinion. Don also made Fiend, about a reanimated corpse who moves into the suburbs and tries to keep his activities a secret from his nosy neighbor. And of course, The Galaxy Invader, in which an alien menace terrorizes a bunch of rednecks. Then there's Lee Bonner. Besides directing episodes of the Baltimore-based TV show Homicide, he made the renowned Adventure of the Action Hunters in 1987. I believe I was the only critic in America to give it a favorable review, but anyway, many films set in Washington, D.C. are shot in Baltimore because of the similarities in architecture, movies like Patriot Games and No Way Out. But how can you talk about those without mentioning the 1994 film, you know what I'm talking about, Conrad Brooks versus the Werewolf, starring Ed Wood alumnus Conrad Brooks as Conrad Brooks, and Bob Haynes, who made the 1985 film Blood Circus, in which aliens come to Earth to fight has-been professional wrestlers. And no wonder Baltimore is the film capital of the world, with an accent so thick it sounds like a foreign language, and waterfront bars filled with hillbilly truck drivers who come to cruise the half-finished transsexuals pumped up on estrogen who hang out between medical appointments at Johns Hopkins. My kind of town. Let's start our first flick and continue our cinema class with John Waters at the break. Hairspray is the early 60s high school musical about a dancing chubster, played by Ricky Lake, who misbehaves her mama, played by Divine, to become a pro-integration cha-cha and teenage idol. 4 stars. Check it out, and the Joe Bob Briggs dancers will be providing brief lessons as we go along. And I'm not giving it 4 stars just because I'm in John Waters' house. Does John even know we're here? Joe Bob, I saw this movie in 1984, and it had a girl in it, and she's sitting by this tree. What movie was that? People, we have got to have more information than that when you're submitting something for the Find That Flick contest. Now, normally, if you give me a plot description, I will know the title of the movie you're trying to remember. But if I can't answer it, hundreds of my fellow drive-in mutants can, because I got fans that watch 32 movies a day. They never leave their apartments. So to find out how to play and all the free junk you can win, visit the MonsterVision website at tnt.turner.com/MonsterVision and look for the Find That Flick contest. Joe Bob, I saw this movie with a talking bear in it and Morgan Fairchild naked. See, that's a description I can work with.
Visit the MonsterVision website at tnt.turner.com/MonsterVision. Back to Joe Bob Summer School and Hairspray on TNT.
Okay, nice close-up zit popping. It's Cinema Studies 101 here at Joe Bob Summer School, and it's time to welcome our guest lecturer, the creative mind behind that scene of close-up zit popping. He's been called the Prince of Puke, the Pope of Trash, the Lord High Poobah of Repulsion, and he's graciously invited into his home here in Baltimore, Maryland, the great filmmaker John Waters. Did I leave out any of your other names off that list, John?
I sort of like the anal ambassador, the ambassador of anguish, a couple other ones, but
okay.
they're my best ones.
Who makes these up?
The press. Well, actually, William Burroughs called me the Pope of Trash, so that was the biggest honor, I thought.
I see. Well, before we start talking about the film, I got to ask you about your mustache.
Okay.
How do you shave around that thing?
You
shave
shave
I
it.
would think one slip, it's all over, right?
Yeah, then you draw it on if you miss. It's simple. Yeah, it's called a pencil mustache. I've had it since I've been 19. I'm certainly not 19 anymore. I don't even think I have a mustache. Matter of fact, if people say, do you like mustaches? I say I hate them. But I shave it every day down, and then about twice a week, whenever I notice, ooh, it looks horrible, I like trim it with scissors on the bottom, and if I miss, you pencil it in. It's quite simple.
But I can tell it's real today.
Oh, it's real,
it's
yeah,
not
yeah.
penciled.
No, you can feel it. Letterman never would. See, he won't either. No one will feel my mustache. Okay.
It ruins the makeup. It ruins the whole illusion.
I didn't say rub, I said feel.
All right. Okay, we're here watching John's film Hairspray. Now, I hear the Corny Collins show is based on a real show that you had here in Baltimore when you were growing up, and they dealt with the same issues that you deal with
yes,
in the
certainly.
movie, right?
The whole rest of the country had the Dick Clark show, American Bandstand. We did not. We had the Buddy Dean show, which was only shown locally, but was incredibly popular. It was more extreme. The girls wore higher hair. The boys wore tighter pants. The gimmick songs were even more ludicrous. So I was obsessed by it for years, and I watched this show, and that's what gave me certainly the idea to bring it to life, really.
And was there a council?
Yes, it was called the Committee.
Okay.
It was called the Committee. Buddy Dean is actually in the movie, the disc jockey. He plays the reporter outside of the governor's mansion that first puts the microphone into the car. When you see them pull up, that is the real Buddy Dean.
Okay. Well, we're going to go back to the movie now and continue our conversation with John Waters at the next break. So roll the film, and maybe later you can show me how to do one of those. Oh, I'll
Did you click your heels together, you can go back to Texas.
Okay, you screwed up again, didn't you? It's your 5th year in junior college. Your life has no possibility of improving. Not true if you attend yet another session of Joe Bob Summer School. 9 brain-expanding Saturday nights, good for actual credit at Southern Arizona State Community College at Ajo. But you need to enroll your hiney. To register, you got to go to the summer school website and get a syllabus. Plus, you'll be able to see who some of our guest lecturers are this summer. And you'll also get a sneak peek at a few of the final exam questions. And you can even include yourself in our summer yearbook, listing your worst subject and favorite hobbies. The internet address for Joe Bob Summer School is tnt.turner.com/summer school. That doesn't mean you can skip the dang class. Of course, even academic probation is fun at Joe Bob Summer School, Saturday nights on Turner National Technical Institute.
Visit Joe Bob Summer School at tnt.turner.com/summer school. Back to Joe Bob Summer School and Hairspray on TNT.
I love the Madison. I really do. It's my favorite dance.
That's the very best musical number in the film, I think.
Can you Madison?
I can do the Madison. That's the only dance I ever do anymore. And when I go to these reunions that they have of the Buddy Dean show, I will only do the Madison, and I usually do it in the front row. So they'll leave me alone on the rest of all the dances. You know, these things, it's kind of weird because you see a line of 150-year-old women doing the locomotion without irony is an odd sight.
All right, I'm here on our Cinema Studies 101 field trip to filmmaking capital of the world, Baltimore, Maryland, with our guest lecturer, John Waters. And what did I hear about how you pitched this movie to the studio? Didn't you do something kind of goofy?
Well, I'm trying to remember. It was so long ago. Basically, I got up and did the dances in front of startled movie executives when I started doing the bug, like I had a disease in front of them. They were just, okay, all right, you know. But it seemed to work because it was the only movie I ever made where a lot of them wanted to do it all at once. So basically, that was the main way. I'd tell the story, but then I would get up and do each one of the dances in front of them, just to, not the entire number, but a few steps of it, just to give them a taste of it. And they were speechless, actually, from it.
But it worked.
Well, I guess I made the movie, yeah.
Now, you're the one who discovered Ricki Lake, right?
Well,
for
yes.
this movie.
Yes,
where
certainly.
did you find her?
Well, she, through a casting woman named Mary Calhoun, and Ricki had been turned down for a job at the Gap a week earlier. And she was still in college, and she came to us, and as soon as she walked in, I knew it was her. I mean, here was a fat girl, and she was definitely fat then. I mean, she's not now. She was then. And she was up there.
We use the term chubster.
Well, actually, fat I don't mind. I just call me Jack Spratt. I've had luck with fat girls, you know. They've been in all my movies. Certainly Divine, Ricki Lake.
Right.
I'm a jumbo kind of guy.
Well, did you know that Ricki lost her virginity while she was shooting your movie Cry Baby?
I knew that. I would have never
about it, right?
told that story till she told it on camera in, I think, Steve Yeager's movie. So, but yes, she did. But she didn't say with who, and I won't say either, but he was in the cast.
All right. Well, I love her show. Do you watch her show?
Yes, I've been on her show. I've been
Really?
on her show.
You know, get real, honey, your boyfriend is a dog. And
I know.
pack your bags or you'll wish you were dead. You know, I think she may have been the first one to do the whole trash talking thing.
Well, she's doing great. The ratings are up this year, you know,
Yeah.
so I'm all for it. She's found great success. When I first met Ricki, she told me she wanted to be a TV star. I said, no, you don't. Everybody wants to be a movie star. No, she told me she wanted to be a TV star. She wasn't kidding. I thought she was.
Really? And the studio didn't want you to have a big star in that part?
Well, you know, they always say in the script it says fat, but they don't mean fat. They mean girl with big breasts that they'd like to, you know, have sex with, which is different than fat. I mean, unless they're chubby shakers. So basically, they always, when I say fat, I mean it.
Okay.
You know, I want a big girl. I want tonnage. And,
You don't want a young Kathy Bates?
No, I love Kathy Bates.
Yeah.
I love Kathy Bates. She's a big girl. You know, I like her for real. I had dinner with her in Baltimore. I think she's a great actress.
But she would be like a name that was, you know, a
Well,
larger...
Well, I needed a teenager, certainly, a teenage girl that could dance, and that's the thing. Very few people even tried out for the part because most of the big girls were afraid to dance. After Hairspray came out, when I was casting for Cry Baby, hundreds of fat girls showed up at the auditions when I wasn't looking for them because I was like the Pied Piper, the leader.
Listen, John, you would have loved the Joe Bob Briggs Dancing Bovina Sisters, 2 Tons of Dancing Fun.
Were they good?
Yeah, I was way ahead of you on this one. They were good. They could dance. Okay, let's get back to John Waters' big crossover musical hit, Hairspray. Ricki Lake said she started losing weight from all the dancing she had to do shooting this film, and you started chasing her around the set with Dove bars so she'd stay big.
For fat continuity. We can't have her come around the corner 3 weeks later and weigh 20 pounds less than the room she was just in the movie. So we had to force feed her, yeah.
Filmmaking is cruel, isn't it?
It is.
First, there was my TNT Monster Vision website with the famous caption contest, which is still going strong, I might add. Then we added the incredibly sexy Monster Vision t-shirt, coveted by would-be prize winners everywhere. Then we added the Find That Flick contest, in which you can win all kinds of free junk just by knowing the plots of weird movies. And now we proudly present Joe Bob's Summer School website, which is the perfect companion to my summer-long movie lineup on TNT. Well, not the perfect companion. Jennifer Lopez would be the perfect companion. But my point is, I'm slowly building an empire here at TNT. It's no longer possible to take me lightly, and I'll take just as much time as I want with this promo. Okay, to find out your class assignments and guest lecturers, get on the information superhighway and drive to tnt.turner.com/summer school and
Enroll at Joe Bob Summer School now at tnt.turner.com/summer school. Back to Joe Bob Summer School and Hairspray on TNT.
2 weeks in hairdo detention. Did they really have hairdo detention?
No, they didn't have hairdo detention, but in my school, you could go get a deficiency slip or sent to the office for having your hair too high. I think he went to regular detention. But certainly hairdo violations were always a big thing in schools, and all the girls I liked the best always had hairdos that got them in trouble.
Really? Sonny Bono and Debbie Harry as the racist parents of Amber Von Tussle, played by Colleen Fitzpatrick. All three of those actors are actually singers.
That's true. That's true. And, you know, Sonny Bono, what other politician won an election while he played a racist in a movie? He was running for mayor of Palm Springs at the time and won after playing a racist in a movie, which is something usually most politicians don't do.
Well, I'm sure you're aware of this because you're an aficionado of B movies, but Sonny Bono has a whole body of film work, because around the same time, maybe slightly before he made this, he was in the Ghoulies movies, either the Ghoulies movies or the Troll movies.
Yes, no, it's the Troll one. It's, which, I know the movie you were in. Yes, he did that right before, which gave me an idea maybe he would be available. But I love the B movies he made himself, certainly. You know, the movie with Cher, the hitchhiking one, Chastity is my favorite. You ought to show that one.
Yeah, that's a great
She has a great lesbian scene in it, and then she has, oh, it's a great movie.
Professor Joe Bob here at the home of our guest lecturer, filmmaker John Waters. Let's talk about Divine for a minute. His real name was Glenn Milstead, and I think you did, what, at least, how many movies with him? 9 movies?
Oh, God, a lot, certainly.
Including Pink Flamingos, Female Trouble, Desperate Living, Polyester.
No, he wasn't in Desperate Living. He was in my early movies. He was in Eat Your Makeup, Roman Candles, but then he was in Mondo Trash, Multiple Maniacs, Pink Flamingos, Female Trouble, Polyester, and Hairspray.
Now, you always say that you think of him as a character actor and not a drag queen. What do you mean by that? What distinction?
Well, because he was never divine except when we were making a movie or when he was doing a nightclub act or when he was paid to do that. He didn't walk around looking like that. And he played men in my films, too. Certainly in Hairspray, he plays a man also. He's Arnold Hodgepole, the racist owner of the TV station. Divine wished he could have played every role. He wanted to play Ricky Lake's role in the beginning. And I said, well, it's a little hard. You're like 35, you know, to play a teenager. I mean, it was tough. He wanted to play the mother and the daughter. He would have played the dog in Pink Flamingos. I mean, he would like to have played in every role. So I never thought of him. I'm not against the word drag queen. He was that, too, when he was in a movie, I guess, but more in the beginning of my career, maybe in Pink Flamingos, he was an insane drag queen, because drag queens were so square then. But at the end, he definitely was a character actor. When he played a mother in Hairspray, what drag queen would allow them to look like that?
Right. Now, I know you guys went back to childhood, right?
No, teenage years. I met his parents moved to my neighborhood when we were in high school.
And how did he develop the character of Divine? How did that whole thing happen?
Well, I think I had a lot to do with it. Certainly, I used Divine's anger, you know, and Divine had been in drag before. And David Lockery was a great influence, who was also in my movies, who would make fun of drag queens by having Divine dress up, certainly, and threaten drag queens. When he'd carry a chainsaw, they would be very uptight. They would run from him, and they hated him because they wanted to wear their mother's mink coat and be their mother, basically, and be rich and wear mink coats and sables and be Miss America, where Divine wanted to break into their house and be a hippie terrorist, basically.
And Hairspray was his final movie.
Yes.
He died the night before his first day as a character on a big sitcom, right?
Playing a man on Married with Children, yes.
Oh, he was going to be a regular on Married with Children?
Playing the gay uncle.
Okay. All right, let's go back to the movie now. And also, Divine taught Ricky Lake how to walk in high heels. Not a lot of guys can say that.
That's true. Well, you know, girls these days, they don't know how to wear high heels. They all need a drag queen in their life to give them beauty tips, really.
Especially fat girls.
Yeah, yeah. All girls. They don't wear high heels anymore.
That's true. and the world is worse off for it, isn't it?
That's true. I think so, too. But Divine's high heels were special metal because they snapped under his weight always. He had to have them specially built out of steel, so they were tough. They weighed so much. Every time he had to pick up his feet, it was like 10 pounds.
I can imagine.
Back to Joe Bob Summer School and Hairspray on TNT.
Hairspray, probably the only musical comedy ever made about racial segregation. We're on our cinema studies field trip to the Baltimore home of our guest lecturer, auteur John Waters. And what do you think of that term, auteur?
Well, it's French, and I love the French because my movies do well there, and they're giving me money for my new movie, so I'm all for it. It means that the director has final say. I'm all for it.
Okay. Let's talk about your earlier flicks for a minute. For those people who don't get your earlier work.
Well, I accidentally made a family movie.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, we call it your crossover movie. Do you agree with that?
Well, yeah. certainly.
Yeah.
I mean, it's the only one that can play. It plays at children's birthday parties. Who would have ever thought that? I mean, I don't think I've shown Pink Flamingos at a children's birthday party once, but that might be illegal. I'm not sure.
Were you arrested?
No, and all the kids that were there grew up to be in the movie business, though. But they were running through the house screaming as we showed it. It was fun.
What drew you to make movies that had vomiting and feces eating and baked rats and naked guys on pogo sticks and a guy who sings Papa Oo Mau Mau with his rectum? And by the way, I just wanted to run through that list because that gives TNT standards and practices heart attacks for me to just say that stuff on the air. So what drew you to that material?
Art, certainly. Basically a sense of humor. It was jokes on exploitation films. You know, Pink Flamingos sort of came out the year exploitation was over, when hardcore became legal. So I was trying to think, what would shock people that isn't sex or violence? What could you come up with that is so ludicrous that it would make you laugh? So since I make comedies, and I still make comedies, I was trying to think of a new way to get you to laugh, which is certainly the same way big comedies today make you laugh. I saw a movie last night called American Pie that comes out this summer, and the teenage character has sex with a pie in it. Certainly it's in the long tradition of repulsive movies trying to make you laugh.
That's true. I think you probably paved the way, because that's a big studio film.
Oh, certainly it is, yeah.
You paved the way for that type of film to be possible. I'm sure you were a big favorite of the Maryland State Censor Board. First of all, how many state censor boards are there?
Well, there are none anymore, and Maryland doesn't have one either, but I think we were the last to have one. I know Texas had one for a long time.
Yeah.
Basically, we were one of the last, and one governor, Harry Hughes, came in, and when he got elected, he got rid of it in one day, so he will always be my political hero in the state of Maryland. Basically, it was a couple women. They watched 3 movies at once, and they couldn't cut the dialogue because of the Supreme Court, so they would just watch and yell out things like, rear entry, reel 3, and stuff like that, and you think, oh, my God. and she would say to me, you can't have that shot, that's a vagina, and I'd say, well, it's a man, how could it be a vagina? Don't tell me about sex, I was married to an Italian. She would say stuff like that, you know, and she was a national joke. She was on the Johnny Carson show. She was a national, worldwide joke that made Baltimore look stupid.
Well, how would you get around them if they were when they were saying
I didn't.
Like
I had to cut stuff. In Female Trouble, she handed me the scissors. I had to right in front of her cut it. Pink Flamingos, she cut stuff. Today, of course, we can show it uncut. But no, I had to cut stuff. I would lose.
Okay.
She would seize the print.
But now your work has evolved into something we can actually show on TNT. Talk about shocking. Okay, let's continue our summer school lecture with John Waters after we watch some more of Hairspray. What's your recipe for great cinematic puke? I forgot to ask you that.
Puke, it's very cheap. You know, you just get some cream corn, add a little water, a little Hershey syrup, put it in your mouth, take one, spit it out every time, it'll get you.
You know, 13-year-olds, any 13-year-old boy could be a good consultant to your movies, couldn't he?
Sure, every 13-year-old boy has already done that trick in school. It's all kids like puke. Why do you think fake puke was such a big seller in joke shops all those years? Puke is a birthright. It's something you have to get out of your system as a teenager. You puke in the drive-in, you puke after your first drink. Puking is part of the teenage happiness.
Yeah, well, we're going to have a famous puke scene later tonight in American Graffiti. We'll get your comment on that at the time. Want to win a free video of some obscure horror movie you've never heard of that some guy in West Virginia made in his basement? Of course you do. That's why umpteen jillion people have discovered our Find That Flick contest. If you've never heard of it, forget it. It's too complicated to explain on TV. But you can find out all about it on our MonsterVision website at tnt.turner.com/MonsterVision. And I'll give you one clue. If you're one of those guys who never leaves his apartment except to rent videos, this contest was designed to give heretofore unrealized meaning to your life.
Play the Find That Flick contest at tnt.turner.com/MonsterVision. Back to Joe Bob Summer School and Hairspray on TNT.
Pia Zadora reciting beatnik poetry and playing the bongos only in a John Waters movie. You're a big fan of Pia.
Oh, I love Pia. I like Allen Ginsberg, too. I like Howl. That was a great poem. I had to call Allen Ginsberg and get his permission for Pia Zadora to read it, and I think the agent was totally thrown by that call.
But they said,
I had to pay
ultimately,
them.
okay.
Certainly I had to pay them, yeah, to read that great poem. But that poem was when I was 15. Oh, my God. Huge influence on me. And Pia Zadora, of course, is everything I believe in America. She's a great star. Butterfly is a great movie. What other movie has Orson Welles and Ed McMahon together at last on the silver screen?
And what, Stacy
Butterfly
Keach?
and Stacy Keach.
Yeah.
I met him recently, and I told him how much I like Butterfly. You know, they always flinch.
No one believes you,
No,
right?
no, but I did love it. You know, and I'm a big fan of Pia. We're still friends.
Okay. You've never used her again, though, have you?
No,
I would
thought,
love to see her again.
Yeah, I think she says to me, I don't do that stuff anymore. She's not even in movies really too much anymore. I think she's, I don't know, she got all good reviews for this movie. She didn't get any bad reviews for this movie. I think Pia's funny in it. She looks good as a beatnik.
Yeah, no, I love that scene. Writer-director John Waters is our guest lecturer, and I see you gave yourself a little cameo there as the crazy shrink.
It's the last time I'll ever be in my own movie. I hated it, having to go into makeup right before you're shooting, and then you can't watch the scene except on the video. I'll never do it again.
Really?
Yeah, I hated it. I mean, I had fun being a shrink like that because, but no, that was the last for me. Now I just do voiceovers in my own movies. You know, I was the voice of Ted Bundy in Serial Mom, and I was the obscene Colin Pecker. But I just think I'll keep my performances to phone conversations off camera.
We also had Divine in a second role as the network meanie.
Yep.
And,
more than a meanie, he was a segregation leader.
Yeah, well,
yeah.
Okay. And then we had Leslie Ann Powers as Penny Pingleton.
Yes.
And this was the only role for her, or?
That I know of. I don't know where she is today. I liked her very much. She came from outside of Washington. She was certainly a young girl at the time. I think she was like 16 or so. Liked her very much. Think she's quite good in the movie, but I don't know where she is today. I hope she's doing well. I wish her well. Ricky Lake always asks about her, too.
Okay. All right, well, let's get back to Hairspray, and you look like a hair hopper to me. Is there such a thing as a male hair hopper?
Yes.
Or can only females be
Oh,
hair
no.
hoppers?
Male hair hoppers are boys like in those days with drapes, with big, greasy Elvis lookalikes were hair hoppers. Today, hair hoppers or Elvis impersonators are always hair hoppers.
Okay, like somebody with ducktails, would that be a hair hopper?
Yeah, or today, Vegas is a hair hopper kind of town, you know? Hair hoppers are usually at gambling tables. They dress too young for their age. They wear a lot of gold jewelry. No, hair hoppers are still alive and well
So perhaps
everywhere.
in the 90s, we have more male hair hoppers than female.
No,
Except
they're
in
still
Texas.
female hair hoppers. They still wear that Farrah Fawcett do. Some variation of it is the top hair hopper hairdo today.
Is there a difference between big hair and hair hopping?
Well, all hair hoppers spend a little too much time on their hair for their age.
Okay. Got it.
All right?
When you enter the caption contest and you don't win, do not write us a letter saying his caption sucks. Let's be good sports about this, okay? After all, the only reason you're so angry is that the stakes are so low. One measly Monster Vision t-shirt. Because if the prize is that cheap and you don't win it, it kind of brings into question your potential in all areas, right? But let's not dwell on that. If you think your caption is hilarious, then come on down to the website and try to make the six-headed jury laugh. That address is tnt.turner.com/monstervision. And here's a tip, think 6th grade humor. We love that.
Try to win a free t-shirt in our caption contest on the one and only Monster Vision website at tnt.turner.com/monstervision. Back to Joe Bob Summer School and Hairspray on TNT.
A strong political statement made by our guest lecturer, John Waters, with the help of the bug and the roach. You know, I think we have a few things in common, John, because I think the greatest movie ever made, your movie's excluded, of course, is, of course, the Texas Chainsaw Massacre.
Me too.
Are you a fan of that flick?
I love that flick, and I went 20-some years ago and met Toby Hooper, the director, in Austin, Texas, and we went on a bender for 24 hours together. And I had a great time with him. We had our own version of the Texas Chainsaw Massacre. I liked all the sequels, too. There's even a great line in one of the sequels when he said, "You wrecked my Sonny Bono wig." They're all great. I'm a huge fan of the Texas Chainsaw, and it's a really, really scary good movie. The first one, Leatherface, I just saw him at the Chiller convention. He's looking good, Leatherface.
Yeah, he goes around to those fan conventions all the time. There's nothing like that Pam on a meat hook scene.
I know.
In the original Chainsaw. That may be the single scariest scene
It's a great movie, and it's really, really scary without irony. It is scary.
Yeah. But you've got me beat on one thing, though. I hear you're actually friends with a member of the Manson family. What is going on there?
This is not the place to talk about that. I'm very serious about believing in rehabilitation. I taught in prison. This is a middle-aged woman.
You taught a filmmaking class at a maximum security prison.
So I believe in rehabilitation. So some of the Manson family, certainly you can say, are rehabilitated after 30 years in prison. Yes, they look back on it with horror also. But I don't say that with any humor. I kind of mean that for real, because I believe in rehabilitation. I taught in prison. I believe that people can change their lives certainly after 30 years.
Did you show your films in the prison?
Yes, I did. I showed worse ones. I showed Even Dwarfs Started Small, the Herzog movie where midgets take over a mental institution. That's a really good one in jail. They can't believe they're seeing it. Yeah, I showed a lot of movies in jail.
And
all my movies.
You got all your movies past the warden?
Yeah, the warden was great. She was fired, and so was I. And the administration is not the same as it was then. It was fairly a little more liberal at the time when I taught there. Oh, yeah, I showed Pink Flamingos there. I showed all my movies, but I showed other weird ones, too. That was the point. We made movies in jail, too.
Realistically, though, your friend, who we won't mention, member of the Manson family.
We're back to that. We're back to that.
No, okay. I'm just saying, realistically, a member of the Manson family is probably not going to get out of prison.
I don't know. One of the other ones has been out for 10 years, and not one bad thing has happened, and he has been totally back in society without any trouble, so I don't know why not.
Really? Okay, well, good for you, man. All right. It's time for the swinging conclusion to Hairspray. And can you stick around for American Graffiti? Because I want to compare and contrast you.
Isn't Suzanne Summers in that?
Yes.
Well, I love her. She was in Serial Mom, one of my favorites.
But I want to compare your take on 1963 and 64 with George Lucas's take on 63 and 64. So we'll do that. We have a lot of fans in prison here at Joe Bob's Summer School. We have a whole part of the show called Joe Bob's Jailbreak where we read.
But it's not as much fun movies in prison anymore. It used to be on a reel. You'd go in, it was dark, you could pass drugs, you could have sex. Now they show it on video. It's not as good.
And you know what? The legislatures are trying to take away their cable. This is a pet peeve with me.
They don't have cable in any of the jails where I know people.
They don't want them to have weights anymore, and they don't want to have cable.
And you can't smoke. And in another woman's jail I went in, you couldn't dye your hair, so everybody has the same length roots. That's really cruel and unusual.
We're on the same wavelength.
All right.
I know all these same prisons that you know.
And now, Joe Bob Summer School and American Graffiti on TNT.
Okay, the 60s civil rights statement, Hairspray, by the man who invented odorama. We're here in the home of John Waters in the film capital of the world, Baltimore, Maryland, for Cinema Studies 101 here on Joe Bob Summer School. And, John, I wanted to ask you, is that dance, the roach, a real dance, or did you make that up?
No, it's a real dance. First you squirt the bug spray, and then you squish the roach, and you squish the roach with the other foot, and then kill that roach. It was a real song. And the bug, you get a disease, and then you throw it to somebody else, and they catch the disease.
So the roach and the bug are both from 1963?
They're real dances. Yeah, we used to do them.
Okay. Our next flick is an early film of George Lucas's that takes place the same year as Hairspray. But first, I want to let people know that next week we'll be back in the classroom for UFO Studies 666, where we'll be showing Mars Attacks featuring guest lecturer UFO expert Stanton Friedman. That's followed by the 1956 classic Forbidden Planet, and we'll be joined by cult heartthrob Anne Francis. Do you ever meet Anne Francis?
No, I haven't, but I like her, certainly, yeah.
She's great. She's had a whole second career now. She goes around... Well, she basically, it's the same career. She goes around promoting Forbidden Planet everywhere.
That's good. These young kids, they know everything about weird movies. That's very healthy.
Okay. And believe it or not, I have seen comparisons to you and George Lucas before.
You have? I've never seen that one.
Movie Line magazine once said, like George Lucas, the films of John Waters take place in a galaxy far, far away.
That's a good one. I've seen my films placed in foreign and video shops.
That's good. However, we're going to show Baltimore.
Right.
You know. However, we're going to show George's pre-Star Wars flick, American Graffiti. It's the summer of 1962, and Ron Howard, Richard Dreyfuss, Harrison Ford, Cindy Williams, and a bunch of other folks you'll recognize.
Suzanne Summers.
Suzanne Summers. They all, I think in her first role, they all cruise around Modesto, California, drag racing, making out, and listening to Wolfman Jack. And just like Hairspray was based on John Waters' youth, this is based on George Lucas's younger days. So, John, would you do me the favor of doing the drive-in totals for us?
Okay, we have no dead bodies, no breaths, 1 fist fight, 4 make-out sessions, 3 fender benders, 3 motor vehicle crash and burn with explosions. We call that a barbecue here. Water balloon to the face, axle ripping, cruising, well, I'll leave that one alone. Pantsing, what's that mean?
That's ripping the pants off somebody.
Oh, that's called foreplay. Booze stealing, booze puking, one of my favorites, and hey, 4-star rating.
Okay, not a whole lot of numbers. I mean, kind of a soft movie
I
by
wish
your
you
standards.
look at some of my old ones, would have gone off the puka chart. The
That's
puka
right.
meter would have been high.
The vomit meter, that's
Yeah.
right. This is one of those coming-of-age type flicks. Check it out. We'll be back at the first break with film scholar John Waters, roll film. Did you talk about George Lucas in that filmmaking class you taught at the prisons?
No, because I wanted to show them films that were illegal for them to see.
What was the favorite film in prison?
I'm embarrassed to say this, The Champ, the remake.
That sickly, sentimental one?
And the one they hated the most, Streetcar Named Desire with Marlon Brando. It really shocked me.
Back to Joe Bob Summer School and American Graffiti on TNT.
See, already there are many similarities between this movie and Hairspray. Like, they both take place in 1962, and there's some dancing in it. Can you think of any other resemblances, John? 'Cause
Well, there's certainly love letters to their extreme youth, and extreme certainly is always what I try to honor in my movies. This was the first time you ever saw kids just driving around in cars. I saw men do it a lot in Baltimore, but that was for a whole different reason.
I understand. We're at the home of our cinema studies guest lecturer, filmmaker John Waters. And by the way, what's your opinion of Suzanne Summers? This was her first film.
Well, I love Suzanne Summers, you know. She went on to make all these insane television shows, you know, that weren't really like my movies. But that's why she had such a good sense of humor that she played herself in Serial Mom. And she was great to have on the set. Matter of fact, she got there and she said, "Am I playing Morgan Fairchild?" Which I thought was really funny. I'm a big fan of Suzanne Summers.
Well, my favorite Suzanne Summers vehicle is, of course, She's the Sheriff. Anyhow, let's get back to American Graffiti and come back and chat some more. You ever used the Thigh Master, John?
I haven't, but I have a signed one she gave me upstairs.
But you never used it.
I never used it.
Well, you're
Because I want to keep it in the box where it's worth money.
and you're an ectomorph. You don't need the Thigh Master.
What's an ectodorf?
Maybe an endomorph. You're either an ectomorph or an endomorph or a mesomorph. But you don't need the
Polymorph.
Thigh Master. The bottom line is you don't need the
Okay, all right. I have the Butt Master, too. She gave me that one. There really is such a thing, for real. That was the sequel. I have them both upstairs.
Oh, we don't want to go there.
Twitter.com/MonsterVision. Back to Joe Bob Summer School and American Graffiti on TNT.
You know, there's hardly anybody in this movie who didn't go on to be a big star. Ron Howard, Richard Dreyfuss, Cindy Williams, Harrison Ford. This is Paul LeMat's second movie. He plays John Milner, the guy with the truck. And Charles Martin Smith, or Terry the Toad, is now a director. He did the famous Air Bud. Did you see Air Bud?
I didn't see it. I didn't see
I
it.
didn't either. It's Cinema Studies 101, and we're here with film professor John Waters. And I, of course, refer back to your prison class on filmmaking,
Right,
calling you a film professor. Universal Studios almost didn't release American Graffiti when it was finished because they thought it was too murky looking, and then it was a smash, and it inspired Happy Days. And
Did he get revenge on the studio
well,
executive?
sort of, because
Yeah.
it financed Star Wars, and
Yeah,
then he could do
yeah,
whatever he wanted
yeah,
to do. Which
yeah. And Ron
he
Howard,
made about $500 million.
So, I mean, that is revenge, yeah.
Yeah.
But Ron Howard, you talked about, he went on, he produced Crybaby. He was one of the 2
Oh,
producers
really?
of Crybaby at Imagine Films, yeah.
I
So you
did not
never
know that.
know where people are going to be intertwined.
No. How rich are you, John?
I'm a thousandaire.
Uh-huh. Do you think anybody who gets to the point of being a household name can be wealthy?
Yeah, you could be a criminal and have not one penny and be a household word in America. Fame has nothing to do with money anymore in America. Notoriety and fame, it's all the same thing. Certainly, you can sometimes take that fame and make some kind of brand name, as you well know. And are you rich from this?
I'm a...
You're a thousandaire too, right?
I'm making in the high 2 figures now.
All right.
So, no, I wouldn't. I would agree with you that notoriety and money have nothing to do with one
No,
another.
they certainly don't.
All right, let's continue with American Graffiti. Roll it. Compare and contrast. George Lucas used actors who were on their way to becoming stars, and you've revitalized the careers of actors whose stars have kind of faded, right?
Well, in this movie, certainly, yes.
You guys
There were
are
some,
like
but I
yin
had...
and yang.
Well, I had Ricky Lake, too,
Well,
who was on
that's
her
true.
way up.
Well,
I like him on the way up or the way down. I never can afford him at the top.
Kind of like minor league baseball.
I wouldn't know.
Candy Clark wants some brew, and if I were Charles Martin Smith, I'd go get her some. Candy Clark actually sounds like a John Waters name. That could be in one of your movies.
Or a stripper. I mean, I think of like Candy Bar.
Yeah. You never used her or worked with her
No.
in any of your movies?
No, I wonder where she is today.
I don't know. I think we tried to find her, but we couldn't find her. John Waters is our Cinema 101 guest lecturer, and even though this movie had a small budget and was shot in 28 days, it was a studio film produced by Francis Coppola, and you've done both studio movies and independent films.
Right.
Which do you like better?
Well,
the money or the control?
Well, I like both. That's the problem. You know, basically, with the independent film and a studio film today, it's all the same. They make you test it. They go through the script. They give you notes. It's not so much different. The only real difference is if, like, a movie, if it costs $10 million, is a huge independent movie and a very cheap studio film. So basically, if it's a cheap studio film, you get better craft services, and your salary is better.
Craft services is like the table with all the food on it, right?
Yeah.
And what are you working on now?
Well, I have a new movie. Well, two things. One, Female Trouble's coming out again, a movie I made many years ago. That's my favorite of my old movies.
A big re-release?
Yeah, and we've kind of been holding it back like Disney kept back Fantasia, you know, so that's coming. And then I'm
Every
about
7
ready,
years?
Yeah. To do this new movie that's called Cecil B. Demented, which is about a lunatic film director who kidnaps a movie star, an A-list movie star, and forces her to be in his underground movie. So it's basically a comedy about teen terrorism against the movie business.
And then
That's
that
coming
one's
up.
ready to go?
No, I can't. It's close. So I don't want to. I don't like to talk about something before you do it. It's such bad luck.
Okay, well, we'll get back to this movie then.
All right.
And I know you like to get creative with casting, so I think you should know this. Joey Buttafuoco is available for acting jobs.
Yeah,
Just
no
saw him.
thanks.
No?
No.
Let me put another name in your noodle. Okay. Somehow I see the two of you working together. Tom Arnold.
No thanks. Although he's a good actor.
I think he is a good
Yeah,
actor.
he can be a good actor, yeah. I like Roseanne. know,
You would use Roseanne?
Roseanne would play, certainly if we do the remake of Pink Flamingos, she has to be Edith. And when I did her show, she did Edith imitations really well, and she told me all her kids love her and yell out like to her, "We honor you, Queen Carlotta," because of Desperate Living. So I love Roseanne. Roseanne would be the one that would be.
So you think she would do it?
Yes, I do think she'd do it.
I do too. The famous liquor store scene in American Graffiti, performed by the great Charles Martin Smith as Terry the Toad. In my opinion, his is the best performance in this entire ensemble cast. And of course, that was Bo Hopkins as the sinister leader of the Pharaohs. We're studying the cinema out of the home of filmmaker John Waters. So this movie is set the same year as your movie, Hairspray, but your film is about the white culture becoming integrated through music, whereas this movie is also about music, but it doesn't have a single black person in it. What do you think of that?
Well, it's in California, right?
Yeah.
Well,
Modesto, California.
Yeah.
You said
Are there
not
any
a lot.
black people that live in Modesto, California?
Well, I was wondering that myself.
That's why Rodney King's jurors. I mean, I don't know. I mean, East Coast to me always. You know, I had somebody recently, a black guy, that said, "Where are all the black guys in your film?" I said, "Are you kidding? On Hairspray, we had a SAG reduction because we had so many local black actors in it." So certainly, but at the time, you know, it was very hard to make a white guy making a comedy about integration. It was very politically incorrect. No, nothing happened. It turned out fine. But before we made the movie, some people said, "How dare you?" and that kind of thing. So you never could tell in those days. Very touchy.
Yeah. I guess maybe there weren't a lot of black people in Modesto, California, but you and Barry Levinson are the big Baltimore boosters, I
Well,
would say.
certainly, and I like Barry's films very much, too. He makes movies about extreme people in Baltimore, too.
Yeah. Do you hate California?
No, not at all, no.
Because I'm thinking of moving to L.A.
If I lived there,
rich
I'd
old
never
movie
make
stars?
movies. If I
No?
lived there, I'd never make movies because they get used to seeing me there. They'd never give me the money to make them. I only come in 1 week a year, go to the meetings, and they think, well, we have to decide. But if they saw me at a party every week, they'd never let me. I like it there. You ever hear that country song like "Too Ugly for L.A., Too Stupid for New York"?
No, but I think I'd like it.
I mean, I like L.A. because everyone looks like porno stars, so I'm for that.
Okay. Well, maybe you can come to my yard sale before I go out there.
All right, what do you have for sale?
Well, I'm probably anything you would buy, right? Because you seem to be quite a collector. I mean, you have these. The reason I ask you if you made a lot of money, I mean, you have these vintage Liberace. I would think a Liberace photograph like that would, would not be inexpensive.
Yeah, but I've had it for 30 years.
Oh, you've had it since before anybody knew who Liberace was?
Oh, everybody knew who
kidding.
Liberace was in the 50s. Are you kidding? He had a hit television show, right?
Yeah. Well, will you show me that famous electric chair from Female Trouble before I leave? I got to see that.
Yeah, it's right in the hall. I mean, I throw my coat on it. It's like, to me, I don't even notice I have it. I know a couple people that have electric chairs in their house. I'm not the only one.
Really?
Mm-hmm. I know 2 in L.A.
I have no friends with electric chairs.
Well, you're not moving to L.A. yet. You will.
Good scene there where Paul Lamette and Mackenzie Phillips spray the other girl's car with shaving cream. It's not close-up zit popping, but we'll have to make do with it now. We're in Baltimore with our Cinema Studies 101 guest lecturer, filmmaker John Waters. So, John, I want to do a little free association.
Okay.
I'm going to say a name. You say whatever pops into your head, okay?
Okay.
Steven Spielberg.
Great auteur.
Ingmar Bergman.
Oh, the real puke king. He had a puke scene in every movie. That's who I copied.
Russ Meyer.
Certainly he makes industrials about breasts.
Ron Howard.
A wonderful producer and a very nice man.
Ted Bundy.
Probably the cutest serial killer America's had.
Julia Roberts.
I like her. She just made a film in Baltimore, and I've never met her before, but she has inspired a lot of bad surgery all over the world on lips because she has the real thing.
Alfred Hitchcock.
Certainly the best auteur of all, you know, somebody that took his image, made fun of it, and became a caricature of himself in the best possible way.
Okay, excellent. You're a type 17B personality.
What's that mean?
I don't know. I'm a 22G.
Okay.
I don't know what it means, but it kept me out of the war.
I know. I learned early never to say negative things about people because then you go to L.A. and sit next to them at a dinner party and they watched your show.
Oh, you're saying the answers would have been different if the camera wasn't rolling.
Not on those.
Okay. Some great names in this movie. The cop is named Holstein. The lecherous teacher is named Wolf. And what was Ron Howard saying about Cindy Williams watching her brother? I think we had a little TNT censorship there. Well, we're at filmmaker John Waters' house in Baltimore for our Cinema Studies 101 lecture, and I haven't asked you what some of your favorite movies are. Which are the movies that you watch over and over again?
Certainly The Bad Seed, because I wanted to be her as a child, you know, so I could say to people, give me those shoes and be a rotten little child. I used to watch this movie called Baxter, which is about a French movie about a killer dog. I like that a lot. Certainly The Wizard of Oz, but just the witch parts. I hate to see Dorothy go home. It's so depressing, black and white and those smelly animals. What else? I don't watch that many movies over. I like to watch new movies that I haven't seen.
Do you have any recent favorites?
Recent favorites? Well, let me think. What did I see this week? The South Park. I thought was a dirty kids movie, finally. It's a whole new genre. It's beginning of a new genre.
You know, every director is jumping on the horror wagon ever since, I guess Scream started this. Would you ever do a horror flick?
There are many critics who think all my films are horror flicks, in a way. I mean, certainly
I think they're
Divine Eating Dog Feces has horrified some people.
Well, yes, I would say many of your films are horrific, but I would like to see a really scary movie done by John Waters. Is that within the realm of possibility?
Certainly, yeah. It's a genre I've never really parodied, so yeah.
All right. Well, let's get back to the pleasant coming-of-age flick, American Graffiti. Did you ever hang out with George Lucas?
Nope, I've never met him. I've driven by his ranch and wondered how you could break in.
How much of a weenie is Ron Howard for not going home with that cute waitress? It's Cinema Studies 101 here at Joe Bob Summer School, and we're on our field trip to Baltimore visiting John Waters, who besides making some of the craziest movies in history, also taught film at a maximum security prison, so he's an expert. Let's talk screenwriting.
All right.
You write all of your things,
yeah.
And where do you find inspiration, for lack of a better word?
By eavesdropping and spying on people every day, you know. I hear great conversations. I heard a woman recently say, she's a bitch. No, she's needy, she's nasty, she's a bitch, but that's who she is. And, you know, you can get great dialogue. Yeah, and you just have to watch people and read a million newspapers and magazines. I mean,
do you like the writing part of it?
Yeah, it's my favorite part. From then on, it's downhill. You got to make an idea real, which means you have to hire people. You have to make a fantasy become real, which we all know is hard to do.
Right. Any advice for, like, aspiring screenwriters?
Sure, sex and violence. That's what people want.
I agree. My kind of guy.
Yeah.
How about aspiring directors?
you know, always cut 10 more minutes out of your film than you think you should. You know, if they didn't stop me, all my movies would be 10 minutes long, because all movies are too long. And there's no such thing as anything that's funny after 90 minutes.
Okay, well, it's getting late, so let's get back to American Graffiti, which I think is a little bit longer than 90 minutes. But what about advice to aspiring professional ball players? Got any for them?
I don't know how to play baseball.
You don't have,
I forgot.
Did you play any
you know,
sport?
I don't. That's the one thing that's come with whatever success I have in my life. I don't ever have to think about that anymore.
Ah, the famous vomit scene with Terry the Toad. And the scene that George Lucas put back in the movie after Harrison Ford got famous, the one where he sings Some Enchanted Evening. I'm about to say goodnight to John Waters, and John, we give all our guest lecturers a book as a gift for doing the show, and so I got you one in honor of Cinema Studies 101. It's Roger Ebert's Pocket Video Guide. You take it with you when you go to the video store, and you can look up how many stars he gives the movie. So look up one of yours. Just try Pink Flamingos in there.
All right, yeah, I hope you pick one, because he's mean to me sometimes. I'm still nice to him. Yeah.
Well,
let's see here.
He put Pink Flamingos.
Let me look here. Let me see what he put in here.
I think it's in there.
Yes, no stars. See? No stars. That means, I guess, not so good. But that's pretty extreme. I bet
1997.
Because it was re-released again.
Oh, okay.
So no stars he gave it. I'd like to find one other movie in here that got no stars. I bet there isn't one.
No,
we are the worst film in this entire book. That's fine with me.
You and Roger Ebert, not Soul Brothers.
No, I know. Yeah, he's given me good reviews before and bad, but you can't tell with him. You know, he gave me very bad ones on Serial Mom, 2 thumbs down, and I wanted to put that in the ads, and they wouldn't let me.
Okay, we're going to watch the end of the flick, and then I'm going to wrap things up here. John, do you mind if I just kind of crash here on your couch for tonight? This has been a long
No,
evening.
it's fine. I'm going out, but make yourself at home.
Okay, the conclusion to American Graffiti. Go. What about the camera crew? Can they stay here too?
The cute one.
So Richard Dreyfuss flies off to college to become George Lucas. Okay, I want to thank our guest lecturer, John Waters, for letting us come to his home in Baltimore to chat with him. And I also want to remind you that next week at Joe Bob Summer School, it's UFO Studies 666 with rocket scientist and ufologist Stanton T. Friedman telling us all about real flying saucers. And we'll be watching the all-star Tim Burton flick Mars Attacks, and then the sci-fi classic Forbidden Planet starring our second guest lecturer, Anne Francis. And that's it for me, Professor Joe Bob, reminding you that sometimes I wake up grumpy and other times I let her sleep. Did you guys hear the one about the guy who meets a girl at a bar and she invites him back to her place for the night? And when they get there, they go right into her bedroom, and the guy sees that the room is filled with stuffed animals. There are hundreds of them all over the place. Giant stuffed animals are on top of the wardrobe, and then large stuffed animals are on the bookshelf and the windowsill, and a lot of smaller stuffed animals are on the bottom shelf. So later that night, after they've had sex, he turns to her and he says, "So, how was I?" And the girl says, "Well, you can take anything from the bottom shelf." Joe Bob Briggs reminding you that the drive-in will never die. And by the way, there was a great loss in the entertainment world today. The guy who wrote the song Hokey Pokey died. But what was really horrible was that they had trouble keeping his body in the casket. They put his left leg in, and, well, you know the rest.